recording. Okay, please continue.
So I'm continuing from question 3. And these are the findings of the authors. The authors in their findings discovered that switching costs had direct effect on resistance, but indirect effect via perceived value was not statistically significant, whereas Kim and Kanka initial test findings had both effects significant. 2. While switching costs in authors' study mediated the effect of other factors on resistance, such as self-efficacy for change and social influence, they found out that there is a contradicting effect of organization support for change in switching costs. And 3, unlike the URM findings, the authors also found out that organization support had no direct effect on resistance. The authors established that self-efficacy for change had no direct impact on resistance, just like the URM study conducted by Kim and Kanka. And finally, the authors discovered that social influence had no direct influence on resistance, as was in the URM study. So the authors therefore concluded that in the absence of PBRS, that is paper-based system, users will always resist the use of electronic health record systems, whether at pre-implementation or post-implementation stage. And given limitations of their study, the authors proposed that further studies could explore the following research areas, which they believed could have influence on their results, but were not considered in their study. 1, exploring how different types of support provided by healthcare organizations influence cost perception of the EHR system. 2, measuring loss aversion with a perceived value construct. 3, investigating the impact of self-efficacy of using EHR technology on resistance. And 4, comparative analysis between the different types of support provided by healthcare organizations and how the healthcare providers respond to each. So that was our first article. Can I proceed?
Just briefly, Lamek, so far that article was, I think you did a good job on that. I know we haven't done something on, could you first go back to methodology, approach and methodology? Indeed, you are right. They used a deductive approach, research approach, and they also used a survey. So somewhere they talk about a questionnaire, but later on in the content, you see that they say they use the word survey. So it was a survey research method, but I think you've done a good job so far on this article. Please move to the next.
So our article 2, which reads, towards a more secure HIRS, the role of HCI and unconscious behaviors. So question 1, research problem identified by authors, previous research, and the research done in the research area. So the research problem in this study, according to the authors, is risk of security breach associated with the increasing use of HRIS amidst unconscious behaviors of the users. And most previous studies focused on unconscious human behaviors as opposed to unconscious behavior. And below is research conducted on the research area. There is research in human-computer interaction, which examines the design and usability component of technology as intended rather than use social impact, which is concerned with how individuals and organizations use technology and the related impact they had on them. There is another research that was conducted in traditional organization, information system security, relevant to HRIS, that dealt with the success and failure of security policies by using deterrence approach, and the authors are mentioned there. There is also another study by Zucker, Clark, and Co. of 2011, conducted on a study which looked at the difference in perception between management and staff about HR security risk management in two companies, and they found out statistically significant differences in one of the companies and stated that organizations' HR, information technology, and executive branches need to effectively collaborate. Question 2. Research approach and subsequent research methods used. The research approach used is deductive in nature, since the authors present a behavioral model along with propositions that build on existing theory. The authors adopted the Martin-Morich model of consumer behavior to validate their findings. The authors designed the model to reflect real-world experiences more closely, where something that gets the attention of conscious mind can disrupt habitual behaviors, and even highly complex behaviors can become habitual with sufficient repetitions. Question 3. The findings of the authors, the conclusions, and the possible research that could be done in the research area. The author's findings are summarized as below. One can enhance HRIS security by incorporating design and implementation practices that focus on the unconscious part of the behavioral spectrum. 2. One can enhance HRIS security by designing systems that create strong contexts and cues. 3. One can enhance HRIS security by focusing on repeating correct behavior as part of the HRIS training process. The authors concluded by noting that unconscious habits from the center of human behavior yet is largely underestimated and misunderstood by many studies. They further wrote that many breaches occur when users are not consciously aware of what they are doing. Also, not all threats in cyber realm are malicious in nature. And based on the recommendation of the authors, the following research could be done to build on their research. Scrutinizing the role of unconscious habits play in security of HRIS using Martin-Morich model of consumer behavior. Thank you. That sums it up. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Jimmy. Does anyone have a question? Sorry, Jimmy, could I look again at your methodology? Approach? Deductive. Okay, we shall look at the methodology later, but thank you for your presentation. In the interest of time, we shall have a conclusive discussion later. Can we have the second group, please? Thank you, Jimmy. You've done a good job. I think your team has done a good job so
You're
far,
welcome.
especially with the problem identification and results. Thank you. Yes. Yes, please. Could you begin?
Yes, good morning to you all.
Good morning.
My name is Mr. I'll be taking you through the first few slides of this where we're from MSIT. This is the first group. So given the articles that we have, we are going to start with the ICT green alignment. And from the questions we had, we're going to start with the research problem identified. So as we went through the work as a group, we each came up with the different ideas, and we came to a small conclusion that the main research topic was that the impact of strategic alignment of IT on the economy, social and environmental performance remains unexplored. How? With the sorry, with the most slides that we are going to go through, you will see that there is a gap that the author was trying to cover, and we all know that a research topic is mainly supposed to cover a gap or introduce something new. So as we went on, we saw that there is need for a new IT alignment model that integrates the concepts of green IT and the corporate social responsibility to design renewable managerial strategies for a sustainable development. And also we saw that the author also mentions a strategic alignment model as a previous model that focused on the alignment of IT with a business strategy, but did not consider the sustainable aspects. So it's okay. Next slide. So as the previous research on the problem, you can see that the first research was done in the 1990s, where the first attempt was to harness the strategic power of IT. This work has argued that innovative changes involving investment in IT can yield consistent benefits as long as the key elements of the strategy, technology, and structure management are met. In particular, researchers focused on this position for the IT alignment strategy and its implementation, which is seen as a vector for the strategic external integration and also for the functional integration by physical decompartmentalization. Sorry, I could not pronounce that word well, of the company of its environment. But then also in 1993, we can see that the professors at MIT School also found that the frameworks to understand the potential of IT for this organization in the future, despite the change of the role in IT can play. So meaning all these authors did their research and actually realized that the frameworks which could help people with the green lights ICT alignment were a bit lacking. So they had to do more research to see if they can design platforms, frameworks to help people, organizations adapt to this new IT. Next slide. What research has been done on this research area? So the paper introduces the concept of IT green alignment, which integrates green IT practices on the social responsibility principles in the IT alignment processes. But this proposed model aims to also create a framework for aligning IT strategies, the sustainable development objectives, including reducing the environmental impact and contributing to the society well-being. You will forgive me if I cannot pronounce a word properly. Then we go on and see that the research approach and the method used by the authors involved in this whole research process. So the authors used a holistic research approach which led to focusing on the transversal models of IT alignment to better meet the expectations of all stakeholders. This innovative approach was based on a simple principle that aims to implement basic sustainable development concepts in the IT alignment process. They conducted literature review to identify the theoretical concepts and the previous research on the IT alignment models. I beg to stop there. My next presenter is going to take on.
Okay, please go ahead.
Going ahead. Hope I can be heard.
Yes, please continue.
Yes, please, you are.
Okay, so the next question was about finding what were the findings of the authors, and then the findings of the authors for us, we came to they were not mentioned in the previous excerpt. However, the authors proposed ICT green alignment model as a new generation ICT model that align green IT and CSR principles for designing renewable managerial strategies for sustainable development. They conclude that their model provides a theoretical tool for addressing the interactions with stakeholders and achieving better adjustment of technological, economical, and social aspects in ICT alignment strategies. So, the key conclusions: the authors emphasize the need for organizations to align their ICT strategies with broader sustainable development objectives, considering environmental and societal considerations alongside business goals. The other one was the author argued that achieving alignment requires a holistic approach that integrates ICT, business, environmental, and societal considerations. So this approach can contribute to the creation of value for all stakeholders. Then the model suggests that by aligning ICT strategies with sustainability goals, organizations can gain a competitive advantage by reducing their carbon footprint, improving efficiency, and meeting society expectations. So those are some of the key conclusions that we came up with. Then possible areas to build on research. One, conducting empirical studies to test and validate the effectiveness of ICT green alignment model in real-world organizational setting. The other, exploring the specific mechanisms and strategies for implementing green IT and CSR principles within the ICT alignment process. Then, investigating the impact of ICT green alignment model on economic, social, and environmental performance outcomes. And then another area, examining the role of different stakeholders in the ICT alignment process and their influence on sustainable development outcomes. Then comparing the ICT green alignment model with other existing ICT alignment models to identify strength, weakness, and areas of improvement. Identifying the challenges that organizations face in implementing the ICT green alignment model, and then lastly, develop case studies of organizations that have successfully implemented the ICT green alignment model. So that was the first question. Then maybe proceeding to the next question was about a framework for evaluating compliance of public service development programs with government enterprise architecture. The research problem that we identified was that there was a challenge faced by governments when implementing government enterprise architecture programs in the context of public service development. Uh, GEAR programs face challenges related to integration and within and in between public agencies, and overcoming their these challenges is often difficult. So stopping there, I will kindly ask the next presenter in our group to proceed.
Thank you. My name is Tamale Newton. I'll be presenting this slide. I'll be presenting the previous research on the problem. So we identified that the authors mentioned that previous research, such as the National Audit Office of Finland, NAO in brief, audit of the Information Society program has found shortcomings in the implementation and governance of such programs. The author also referred to their own research, including the findings from the first round of the Finnish interoperability program, which identified areas for improvement in the development of government enterprise architecture, GEA. According to the Christensen and Goetz 2007, 67% of governments already have the government enterprise architecture program, and added to those, the countries that are planning to have a program within 1 or 2 years, the percentage will exceed 90%. In UK, the originally £6 billion connecting for health program faced a multitude of problems, several scope changes and give-ups by vendors and consultants, and continuous budget overruns. The problems are deep-rooted in data conversion, legacy system upgrades, user training, mergers, senior staff engagement into the design, according to Mayor 2006. In practice, Madsen 2007 study showed that the federal agencies in the USA adopting enterprise architecture planning are struggling to show how information systems planning can be a driver for administrative reforms and transformation in government. Yeah. Research done. The authors also refer to their own research, including the findings from their first round of the Finnish interoperability program, which identified areas for improvement in the development of government enterprise architecture, GEA. Additionally, the author mentioned that there have been studies on enterprise architecture in the business sector, but there is also a need for research specifically focused on the public sector transformation with government enterprise architecture. Next slide. Next slide shows the next slide. This slide shows the research approach, subsequent research method, which was used by the authors resolving in the research problem or question. The author used a mixed method research approach. They used the qualitative method to review the existing literature on government enterprise architecture and public sector transformation, and then used the quantitative method to collect data on the Finnish interoperability and interoperability program. The author's mixed method approach allowed them to collect data from multiple sources and to use different methods to analyze the data. This approach provided the author with a more comprehensive understanding of the challenges and opportunities of using government enterprise architecture, GEA, to improve public sector service delivery. The qualitative research involved review of the relevant academic literature on government enterprise architecture and public sector transformation. They also conducted interviews with key stakeholders in the Finnish interoperability program. The author's quantitative research approach involved a survey of all participants in the Finnish interoperability program. The survey asked participants about their experience with program challenges and opportunities of government enterprise architecture and areas for improvement. The author used the finding to develop a framework for evaluating public service development programs, compliance with government enterprise architecture. I submit. I call my the next presenter to take on the next slides.
For the next question, it was what were the findings of the authors, the conclusion, and the possible areas of research that we can use to build on their research. So the findings, the authors argued that there is a need to increase the national level monitoring and quality assurance mechanism to the programs. That there are challenges in aligning public service development efforts with the goals and standards of the government enterprise architecture. So achieving this across government agencies and ensuring compliance with the standards seems to be complex. They also found out that there is a need for a systematic framework to evaluate the compliance of public service development programs with the government enterprise architecture. That such a framework can help the government agencies assess their programs that are in line with the objectives and the standards. They also found out that governments often struggle to quantify, measure, and demonstrate the benefits and the returns on ICT investments and e-government efforts. That this challenge makes it difficult to evaluate the success of these programs. The other finding is that the framework needs to include additional stages of business modeling because of the observed problems of agencies not being able to look outside the box and to do innovations. Next slide. The key conclusions that we were able to come up with, that quality assurance and monitoring mechanisms are essential for the success of public service development programs. Government should incorporate quality assurance measures at various stages of program development to ensure that there is compliance for good expected outcomes. The authors also suggest that incorporating business models, including external perspectives from consultants, software developers, and research institutions can help government agencies think innovatively and reorganize their activities for better results. Another conclusion is that achieving effective governance models is critical. It's critical for these programs. The government should focus on governance structures and mechanisms to guide and encourage desired developments. The possible areas of research that can be used to build on the current one is conducting studies to test and validate the proposed framework for evaluating compliance with government enterprise architecture, investigating the challenges and barriers faced by government in implementing these programs, identifying strategies to overcome them. Then examining the impact of EDA on the efficiency, effectiveness, and interoperability of public service development programs. That there is exploring the need of business modeling in facilitating innovation and think out of the box for the government agencies. that it can also conduct comparative studies to analyze the experiences and lessons learned from government enterprise architecture implementation in different countries or regions. Can also investigate the role of leadership in the successful implementation of these programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just also take note, this paper is actually really well organized. Can you all hear me?
Yes, doctor, we can hear you.
Yeah, if you look at its conclusion, after the conclusion, they actually point out areas for further research. So already some of you can already see how a paper even outlines what has been done, what has not been done. This one says that a future objective of the research at hand is the design of a framework for assessing EM. Then they say such a framework should make the value add of EAM. Then they go ahead to say that the first steps towards the framework has been conducted with one partner. They did it with a survey, they used survey results. And then they go ahead to point out that the rest of the key figures, there were 65 key figures that were catalogued. They said the rest of the key figures need to be validated in further research. So even someone can actually do a research validating key figures of this research. Yeah. So this is where you find gaps, research gaps. With these publications, they point out areas where there is need for more research. So looking at some of these things, this is where you find your gaps, what you can do for research, not simply just looking at organizational problems. Oh, let me solve my organizational problem. Look at also these applications and relate them to your organizational problem. Thank you. Is there another person coming?
No, we are done, doctor.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's have the next group, please, quickly.
Good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
Yes, I'm Andrew, presenting for Group 2, ICT. Article 1 title was Digital Strategy, Integrated Approach and Generic Options. The research problem identified was a number of existing approaches advanced our knowledge of digital strategy. However, they do not completely address digital strategy as a whole. Additionally, these approaches do not include coherent generic options for digital strategies. Companies lack clarity regarding which direction to take with respect to their digital strategy. The previous research, there is no consensus on an integrated approach to the development of a digital strategy. The previous approaches do not include coherent generic options for digital strategies. The previous approaches do not completely address the digital strategies as a whole. So the research done on the research area, researching the resource-based view, RBV, and the digital capabilities for strategy formulation, particularly investigating resources and potential competitive advantage. The research approach identified was phenomenology, stroke qualitative research approach, which was at a high level because of the way the authors were implementing their research. The research method was semi-structured interviews and case studies from experts and company representatives. The findings: existing theories were inefficient to establish a comprehensive digital strategy. The paper offered an integrated approach for the development of a digital strategy, which consists of 6 phases: external strategic analysis, external strategic forecasting, internal strategic analysis, strategic principles, strategic options, and strategy formulation. Within the integrated approach, we also, according to the author, we also deliver 4 generic digital strategies: product provider, service provider, product platform operator, and service platform operator. The conclusions: the research summarizes 8 existing approaches to the development of a digital strategy, with insights from 6 researchers and 7 practitioners on digital strategy, and 10 case studies on digital strategy. Based on this, the research delivered an integrated approach on how to deliver a digital strategy. Possible areas of research were an integrated approach to digital strategy in the banking, insurance, government, health, education, engineering sectors in Uganda. Another one was strengthening the credibility of the integrated approach to the digital strategy through practical validation and a framework for measuring the effectiveness of a digital strategy. Thank you. So the next presenter can take on.
Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
This Walter, I will be taking on the remaining question 2 of the article. The article was about towards measuring the success of EA decisions, which is a survey that was carried out among
Sorry, Walter, have you fallen off? I think Walter might have lost his network. Could somebody else continue?
Good morning, Doctor. Can I take on?
Please do, please do.
All right. As Walter is recovering back, so our article 2 focused on towards measuring success of enterprise architecture.
Andrew, I'm back.
Okay, then you can go ahead.
Oh yeah, so the article was about measuring the success of EA decisions, which is a survey carried out among practitioners with an outline of a framework. So the research problem that we identified in the article was that there was an increase of criticism on how EA management is implemented in the organizations. That there was also that EA management is too focused on creating artifacts, whereby you find that these artifacts create a lot of abundance of document related to organizations, but they do not really address the needs of the corporate stakeholders. Also, another problem that we identified was that EA is too much recognized as a burden to corporate stakeholders rather than providing the benefits to them. And also, then on the research problem, on the previous research that was carried out on the research, we found out that the previous research really reveals specific drawbacks of current practices. And there was also that corporate stakeholders are not satisfied with the way EA operates. And there was also lack of common standards to measure its success because now in the organizations. Another is that companies' goals are met well if only an individual stakeholder are taken into account. Because like if the companies try to consider all stakeholders, find that it's not really actually, the goals of the companies are not met. Another is that EA they recommended that EA should increase the acceptance of change as one of the enterprise architecture benefits, because you find that sometimes in organizations they don't want to change the way they do things. So I think that's one. The previous research found that. And also in the previous research there was that EA management is too focused on creating artifacts. They don't deal so much into addressing the business needs instead, but creating artifacts only. Next slide, please, Andrew. Then on the research done on the research area, which research are we done on area one? We found there was a research which was on measuring the impact of decision made by EA by enterprise architects or supported by enterprise artifacts. So they find that there were enterprise architects carried out a research to measure how the impact of decision making by the enterprise architectures, or the supported artifacts that are created. Another one was that they carried out research to determine the technical kind of benefits and potential measures of EA among architects and business stakeholders in the European logistics company, to be particular. Then also they carried out a study, and they found that there was a study that there was a study where there was lack of EA KPIs that supports the determinants for objectives and which have been met. Then on the research approach, the authors used a mixed approach, which was both qualitative and quantitative. In that, because when they realized that while we found that it was a mixed approach, they did more do with surveys, then questionnaires came in, and then they narrowed down to one specific logistic company, because they carried out a survey on very many companies to deal with automobile and telecommunications, but then they narrowed down to one, which is the European logistic company. That makes it qualitative because they're trying to go deep into one specific company. Then on the research method that they used to conduct the study, they carried out survey that's in the different on the different practitioners and then companies. Then they also, with the practitioners who participated, they carried out multiple like online questionnaires whereby they were answering and then giving feedbacks on their response towards the study. The next slide. And on the findings, found that a framework was developed based on the survey results as well as a literature regarding goals and existing key figures of EA at the end of their research. And then you find that a survey gave a valuable insight of how the EA practitioners were dealing with deals with measuring success of EA and how they relate to measuring EA management for companies. And also the the business IT alignment. It found out it was it was one of the most important valuable enterprise EA benefits, but it was but it was not proven by various literature so far, according to their findings. Then, in conclusion, the founders, as part of EA reform, there is a need for development of business understandable frameworks, because they realize that most of the frameworks does not understand or interpret the business properly. So they conclude that there's a need to develop a business understandable framework. And the author's framework will not see at first step towards towards this approach. It is that involved by expert feedbacks and adequate literature. The framework itself was successful, tested on real world example in German. So also they found that they tested the framework to in a, in a real world example, giving it for example, they carried it on German, and they found that was working out, but still they couldn't prove the more they needed more study. And also they found that in order to be represented, in order to be a representative, to have a representable result, the framework needed to be tested on far more practical examples. Like for example, maybe carried out on different, because now they only carried out in German. Could be maybe done somewhere else, like in maybe in case Uganda or maybe some other country, because you cannot confirm or make a conclusion that it's not working very well because they've done in German. Then also we found that among the possible areas of research that could be done under this article, found that you could develop a business IT alignment strategy for better EA management. Thank you so much. That's the end of our presentation.
Thank you so much, Walter. Thank you very much. Maybe for the interest of time, we can move to the next group, and I'll have a conclusive discussion next time we meet, or in the middle of the week. I'll send something just for the interest of time. Can we have the next group?
Morning, members. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Timothy.
Can I share my screen?
Please do.
In the interest of time, I'll run through this very fast. Actually, some of my members are not feeling well, so I'll have to do this alone. Bear with me just in case I am fast, and at some point my internet may disturb it. So
it is okay. It's okay. Please go ahead.
So this is Group C, IS. Our research switching to electronic health records system. We were able to identify the problem, which was healthcare provider resistance to EHR. The previous research about this is there was a slow progress in achieving the true benefits EHR systems, at least in part attributed to healthcare providers' reluctance to change to new ways of working. That was by that author, 2015. Additionally, healthcare providers often perceive the use of some technologies as unnecessary, and that prevent them from their duties of providing care to patients. Let's run through this very fast. Research has also been done. What has been done on the research is healthcare providers perceptions towards switching from a paper-based recording system to a new EHR system to model the factors that shape resistance at early stages of the EHR implementation. Many studies, the study of the user response model by Kim and that explored resistance to change associated with the implementation of the new IS system. Another study was testing using data collected from a major IT service company that is deploying a new enterprise system called the New Office Plus. It's a combination of an enterprise portal and knowledge management system. It serves several key functions such as enterprise-wide communication, task processing, collaboration with colleagues, personal scheduling, and knowledge management. Another study was examining the resistance towards HIT requires special attention to the unique context of healthcare organizations. Another study provides healthcare providers perceive the interaction with HIT as an activity that is not part of their job description, and thus they are not willing to stretch their capacities to perform non-medical tasks. The research approach used there was a deductive approach. The subsequent research method used there was the quantitative method. The findings include the following. Healthcare providers perceived switching costs to HER as a main contributor to their resistance. Organizational support had a positive effect. Has a positive direct effect. Another finding was the type of support. Type of support chosen by the hospital is increasing healthcare providers' perception of HER costs, and it is not impacting their resistance. Another finding there was healthcare providers can appreciate the benefits of the switch to the new HER only if they have sufficient knowledge and skills to interact with HER without having to spend the time and effort to master the change. Our conclusions were the more support offered by the hospital to healthcare providers, the more discussions and presentations about the change would be available, and hence healthcare providers become more aware of the benefits associated with the switch. Our possible areas of research we also to examine how these perceived costs and benefits vary across different demographic groups. For instance, literature suggests that individual differences play a role in resistance within the healthcare context. Somehow, 2015. However, our findings reveal that demographic indicators such as age, gender, position at the hospital, or levels of education are not significant, at least for example, at least for our sample, in explaining EHR resistance. Further research is to further examine the role individual differences play in this phenomenon. Our second article was about toward a more secure human resource information system, and we were able to identify the problem in that article. First, I've forgotten to put the problem, but it was unconscious behaviors among employees. So what the previous research says about this problem was according to the study, almost 40% of all security breaches in organizations are non-malicious in nature and typically result from compliance. Another previous research about this is that additional research in human interaction has examined the design and usability components of technology intended rather than the use-stroke impact cycle. The previous research about the problem has identified habitual IT use behavior in IS as repeated behavioral sequences that are automatically triggered by cues in the environment. The previous research says also investigated the interplay between compliance and habits. High propensity for compliance has been associated with high degree of security. So what research has been done on this area is research has also pointed to the role habits play when warning users ignore warnings or routinely acknowledge notifications. For example, users click through half of all secure sockets. There are warnings in less than 2 seconds, in which is consistent with warnings fatigue. Another research that has been done is that researchers have also investigated the interplay between compliance and habits. High propensity for compliance has been associated with high degree of security. The next question is the research approach used by the authors was an inductive approach. Then the other question was about the subsequent research method used by the authors. It was a mixed method. Yes, it was a mixed method. The findings about the authors: one, unconscious habits form the center of human behavior, yet research largely underestimates and misunderstands them. Not all threats in cyber realm are malicious in nature. Another finding was about a study whereby 70% of American survey respondents and 64 of the German respondents stated that unintentional mistakes caused more security incidents than malicious acts. In the study also considers the security education, training, and awareness. The last finding was that we contend that most unintentional mistakes result from habitual behavior that promotes an automatic response. So the conclusion that we came up with was that one can enhance human resource information system security by incorporating design and implementing practices that focus on unconscious parts of the behavioral spectrum. Possible area of research that we could build on that is that no one has investigated this issue in human resource information systems and human computer interaction in any context. Investigating the role unconscious habits may play is the security of HRIS. Members, with that, I beg to submit.
Okay, thank you so much. Could you quickly have the next group?
Good morning, members.
Good morning.
Yes, this is Group B. We are 5 members. Some of the members are away, with apologies, but I'm going to present it with no bias. My name is Samuel Benjamin. So, for the first article, the research problem that we identified was resistance of healthcare providers within an international healthcare organization, the adoption of electronic health record systems as compared to traditional paper-based recording systems. Then, what does the previous research say about the problem? There are quite a number of, can I say, things that items, articles that we use, that we came across to know what other researchers identified. One of them was adoption challenges. With reference to theory, it suggests, as you can see there in the reference, there was a suggestion that a significant number of healthcare organizations struggle with EHR implementation and often do not use the system as intended, even months after implementation. Then the next research, the other issue identified was there is resistance, and it's one of the major barriers. The author points out that healthcare providers' resistance to change is a significant factor, leading to slow progress in realizing the benefits of EHR systems. They argue that understanding this resistance is crucial to effective implementation. Another issue was lack of empirically tested models. Prior research in this field has mainly focused on factors that encourage or discourage EHR adoption, but no research has been done on other models to explain healthcare providers' resistance. So most of these researchers are mainly focusing on issues to encourage or that are leading to encouraging or discouraging EHR adoption. But there are no other models that are being used to explain healthcare's resistance to EHR. So they also emphasize the need of models that have been tested. Then the other one is contextual considerations. The authors highlight that the unique context of healthcare organizations, where physicians often have more autonomy. Their autonomy is maybe something like choice or power, whereby they have more power to decide what to use and what not to use. So they also note that healthcare providers perceive certain HIT tasks as unnecessary and not aligned with their roles, this leading to resistance. The research approach that was used, from our discussion, the authors used the mixed methods approach. This is because it involved a combination of both quantitative methods, such as survey development, SEM, statistical analysis, and also qualitative methods that involved instrument validation, model modification, based on empirical findings. So that's why we suggested it was mixed, because we came up with both types of research methods that fit under quantitative and qualitative. Then the research methods used, one of the research methods was instrument development. Here authors had adopted existing validated scales and items from the user reference model. These were modified to fit the context of this study specifically. The method involved questionnaire development and modification based on established scales. The other method was sample and data collection. So data was collected from the pilot study and from the main study. The pilot study, they collected data from one unit, which was the dermatology unit, and they collected 126 responses. Then this data was used to refine the survey and identify issues related to psychometric properties. Then the other was the main study. The main study involved gathering responses from the entire hospital. So here they collected around 226 responses. Actually, they collected 226 and provided this provided the primary data set for the study. Another research method was the instrument validation. Here, authors employed various methods to validate their instruments. You remember in the first method, there was instrument development. And then after development, these instruments were validated. And these are the methods that they use. Composite reliability, this was used to access reliability of the instrument. Average variance extracted. Maximum shared variance, confirmatory factor analysis. These were all methods used under instrument validation to validate the instruments that were used. Then they had to also test the original model. Here, the authors used the structural equation modeling called SEM to test the original research model, which was the user reference model. Then the other one was improving the model fit. After finding that from testing the original model, they discovered that the URM did not fit well in the healthcare context. So they had to improve on the model fit. The authors modified it using a modification indices test to explore alternative models. This included adjusting the model based on the results that were got from the MIT. So what were the findings? One of the findings was switching costs and resistance. There was a correlation between switching costs and resistance. The switching costs are, maybe I can term them as some of the issues someone experiences when they're changing. For example, someone has been working in an organization and then you're being transferred to another organization, maybe in a different country. There are some costs that you incur when you're changing and transiting. So here, the healthcare providers perceive that switching costs of the EHR were a major factor to resistance and adopting it. So, however, you also suggest that, however, even despite all these switching costs, the perceived value of the system remained the same. Then another finding was that the organization was about organization support and switching costs. Yeah, organization support influenced switching costs, which in turn directly contributed to resistance. So these healthcare providers realized that the hospital, maybe staff and superiors were forcing them, we can use maybe forcing them to change to the new system. It's a paper-based system, so that was somehow even perceived as something burdensome and uncertain. And this was among the findings. Then self-efficacy and resistance. Self-efficacy has to do with confidence. It relates to something to do with confidence. So self-efficacy for change had no direct impact on resistance, rather than direct effect mediated through switching costs. This result indicates that self-efficacy for change reduces healthcare providers' resistance to change indirectly through reducing switching costs. Then the other was direct effect on organizational support and resistance. So when organizations provide adequate support to their employees about a change, employees realize the benefits associated with the switch. So organizational support methods such as training and providing resources affect individuals' reactions towards change to the new system. Then social influence and resistance. A study found that social influence, particularly from superiors at the hospital, had no effect on the healthcare providers' resistance. So influence may be from the leaders. Whether it was positive, it had no impact at all. It did not increase the resistance or reduce it. Just didn't do anything. Then the conclusions that they came to, the conclusions were that switching costs has a direct impact on resistance. Thus, therefore, reducing it is critical when aiming to eliminate resistance. Like I explained, the costs of switching were some of the things that needed to be addressed in order to eliminate resistance. So investing in healthcare providers resist development to increase self-efficacy would have direct impacts on their perception of the switch in terms of costs and its benefits. Then also being able to explain the causes of HIT resistance would help in finding solutions to make these systems more adopted and with higher success rates. Possible areas of research to build on. Individual differences and resistance. Although the study found that demographic indicators like age, gender, and position did not significantly explain the EHR resistance in their sample, future research could explore the role of individual differences in resistance, as individual healthcare providers may respond differently to EHR adoption based on their characteristics. Here, there was some data collected on people depending on their age and their gender and their position. So here, one of the areas we believe that more research could be built on is the differences between people in these ages and how they can trigger this resistance or adoption. Then other areas were impact of user training, investigating the impact of user training and education programs on reducing resistance could provide insights for healthcare organizations looking to implement EHR. So there is need to carry out more research on the impact of user training and education program to reducing resistance. Yes, that was the first article. I've tried to go through it first to save time because we have a second article. The second article is going to be presented by Yes, are you on?
I'm on. Yes, Benjamin, I'm on.
Okay, let me go ahead.
Yeah, yes, I'm in names of Kamapias, and I'm presenting Article 2 that talks about towards a more secure information system, the role of human interaction and unconscious behavior. Next slide. Now, the research problem we identified here was mainly based on examining the secure and unsecure behaviors in the context of human resource information systems. In this, we identified the challenges of ensuring security of human resource information system is in different organizations. So the problem mainly deviated from efforts to
educate employees and to implement security policies so as to try and counter the non-malicious security breaches that occur. And in the long run, they try to compromise the confidentiality of employment data. Next slide. Previous research about the problem, we identified the importance of human resource information system. In this, due to the sensitive nature of the data that is contained therein, personal information is more personal information like social security numbers, medical data, and bank account information, salaries, and profession performance evaluations. Breaches of this data in the long run can bring to legal and can bring to identity of theft and legal liabilities for the different organizations. Then the next one was the nature of breaches and how they come up. For example, weak password practices such as using guessable passwords are more common security risk by for example that author called Newswire 2014. Then the other one, another previous research about the problem was the cognitive overload that Johnson and Gramier identified was that there was an increased complexity that leads to cognitive overload for employees. And in the long run, this may result in employees resorting to unconscious habitual behaviors, such as writing down passwords on maybe papers and maybe using weaker ones. In continuation, there was also other research on habitual behaviors that were performed by the employees within the given organizations, and of course, these habits can override their deliberate intentions, challenging them to enforce secure behaviors for data protection within their organizations. Then the stressful conditions. Here, the stressful conditions such as personal emergencies or accidents can cause the different medical personnel to switch off. In the long run, if they switch off, they may not be able to concentrate on what is really done on the different online systems. Then the routine access from various devices and locations, creating routines that may lead to habitual behaviors, both secure and unsecure. Then the security aids, where employees usually resort to writing passwords down or storing them electronically due to the complexity of the passwords. Then also there was routines and unconscious behavior. In this, there were different actions such as clicking on different links without much thought can also lead to sensitive information being leaked. Then also there was also research has also investigated an interplay between the habits and the high propensity of sensitiveness of the different security breaches. Now, the other one was research done in the area. We looked at the importance of human resource information systems. Here, previous research acknowledges its importance due to the sensitive nature of data that contains a given information system of a given organization. For example, like social security numbers, medical data, and bank account information, as well as salaries. So breaches here therein can lead to can lead to identification of thefts and legal liabilities for the organization. Then also there was a state privacy laws. For example, in US, states passed laws requiring organizations to adopt different security measures as to be able to counter the sensitive information not to be leaked out. Continue. In continuation of the research done, we also looked at the nature of security breaches, where it shows the significant percentage of the security breaches that are non-malicious, and they usually result from the negligence of the employees rather than having complacency within the organization. Then there is also community overload, where this results in two employees resorting to unconscious behaviors, such as writing down passwords or using weak ones that makes the information or data of a given organization susceptible to leakage. Then there is also the habitual behaviors within that are performed repeatedly or unconsciously. So these factors bring about security risks within the organization, making it a challenge to enforce secure behaviors. Then, as earlier on, we noted also the stressful conditions that may lead to not paying attention to what is being done at the moment. By the moment they are logging into their different systems, then the routine access of their information systems from the several devices is also another behavior that makes their data both secure and unsecure. Then we go to the research approach that was discussed about. The overall research approach in this paper was mainly qualitative. Here, it involved a review of literature and the involvement of theoretical frameworks to address the research problem. The authors draw on prior research from various fields to inform their frameworks, but they did not conduct empirical tests and their prepositions. Then the research methods used mainly in this article, the research methods that were used were mainly qualitative. For example, review of literature. For example, in the security and habitual research. Then also proposing different frameworks to counter the unsecure behaviors therein. So there were also observations in terms of how people behave when they're using the different information systems, the pattern recognition, how often, how do they log into their information systems. Then there was also theory development where the different models were adopted. Then the findings of the research paper discuss more importance of unconscious habits that are shaping human behavior in the context of human resource information systems. So while this paper focused on presenting the theoretical framework, the proposing research directions were rather reporting empirical specific findings. continuation of the findings. There was also autopilot mode, behaviors that individuals repeat on similar situations, creating habits that are automatic, and in the long run they are executing them without need of conscious level of thinking, or maybe in terms of the oversight, what is the upcoming problem of what I'm doing, or any other issue that can come in without concentrating while using their information system. Then individuals who periodically encounter situations in situations in which they can choose decision making. Here, individuals always decided to do what they wanted on their personal basis without trying to inquire from their colleagues on what to do in that same context. Then the conclusions are that there was unconscious habits in human resource information security, where people were always doing the same. They were always having the same behavior towards the information system and being negligent while using them. There was also need for a new perspective. The paper challenges the conversion wisdom that employees can cautiously follow to secure their security directions and policies. Then there were also proposed frameworks. In this, they would help to model the understanding of how habits could influence employee behavior in human resource information systems. Then the possible areas of research to build on under this article, there were comparative studies where research can compare different approaches to human resource information systems, security training that focuses on awareness while using the different information systems, and also to target the unconscious behaviors that are within the organizations they are in. Then there was also human-centered design. Here, it is the principle of how humans are centered to a given design of the information system and the interfaces, and how it is more versatile to them in order to be able to counter-interact the real risk of unconscious behaviors. In continuation of the possible areas of research, there were also empirical studies. In this, researchers can design longitudinal studies to make sure they investigate the impact of unconscious habits within the information system security. Then behavioral reinforcement, where further research can explore the effectiveness of behavioral reinforcements in using human resource information system. For example, here authors suggest using of cues and feedback to reinforce the desired security behaviors. Then there was also neurosecurity, the emerging behavior of this can be explored to gain insights and cognitive neuroscience aspect of information systems, so as to leverage knowledge about how people can better understand and use the information systems to be able to address the unconscious behaviors. Then the comparative studies. Here, research can compare two different approaches so as to target security training, as well as the different effective methods of improving human resource information system security. the human centered design, where where the employees are given more training about the interfaces they are going to use in their systems, and how to use them, and how to easily be able to roll out the different unconscious behaviors so as to make their data secure.
Thank
I think
you.
that
That's
was
the presentation.
that was the end of the presentation. It was too long, but I tried to summarize a bit.
Okay, thank you so much. Can we quickly have the next person? We are a bit time burdened. And I think we have, how many more groups? How many groups have presented so far? It should be about 5. Hello, the next group, please. Hello.
Hello, this is Nicholas. We're going to start our presentation shortly. I'm trying to share my my screen. Give me just a few seconds.
Okay.
Just to confirm, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so those are the people that were in the discussion group. And we are going to go straight into Article 1, which was talking about switching electronic health record systems, a replication of the user resistance model. Oh, sorry, my screen was... Okay, the first question was, what is the research problem identified by the author? What does the previous research say about this problem? And what research has been done in this research area? And the research problem we identified was resistance exhibited by healthcare professionals towards adoption of and utilization of the EHR systems in the early stages of implementation. And what the previous research says about this problem, in this area, it's centered on factors influencing the adoption of EHR systems, and such as perceived benefits, usability, and system characteristics, and organizational support. And to continue, these authors argued that there has been relative lack of research dedicated to understanding and predicting resistance to the EHR systems, but they were contending that this crucial gap in the literature, as a resistance can be a significant barrier to the successful implementation and utilization of the EHR system. I'll go straight into what the previous research says about the problem. We noticed, we picked up this that the case studies conducted in 2013 suggested that these struggles were observed globally. And the more recent research in 2016 found that approximately 1 in 4 hospitals did not even have a basic EHR system due to resistance issues, and that some hospitals were still relying on paper-based record systems. Research done in this area, we shall go straight to that. The user acceptance and perception. Research has examined healthcare providers' attitudes and perceptions, beliefs regarding the EHR system. This includes the studies on perceived usefulness, ease of use, and the impact on the clinical practice. We broke these research areas into the user acceptance and perception. We also noticed the organizational factors, where the studies investigated the influence of organizational factors, such as the support from management, training programs, and the workflow integrations and the successful implementations of these EHR systems. We also picked up the technical and system characteristics, where it assessed the impact of the system features, the interoperability, and the technical support on the EHR adoption and utilization. And that takes us into the next question, which said that what research approach, subsequent research method was used by the author in resolving the research problem or the question. And now this is what we picked out as the research approach and methodology. The authors employed a mixed methods research method, which combines quantitative and qualitative research methods. Okay, it must have been approaches. Sorry about that. So the research approach, the authors employed the conceptual replication approach, and this approach involves replicating a theoretical model. In this case was the URM, the user resistance model, which involves replicating a theoretical model in a context or environment to test its applicability and the relevance. And they use the URM by Kim Kankanali to examine the resistance of the EHR systems. So we go to the next question, which said, what were the findings of the authors? What conclusions did they come to? What are the possible areas of research that you could do to build on their research? So we shall go to the findings, conclusions, and then the possible areas of research we could do to build on theirs. The findings, number 1, self-efficacy and perception costs versus benefits. They found that increasing the healthcare providers' self-efficacy through the development. Now, self-efficacy, if you read about it, is that self-belief in the application and that you can use it. So improving the healthcare providers' self-efficacy through development efforts can influence how they perceive the cost versus benefit of transitioning to the new EHR system. We also picked up a finding about the early emphasis on the advantages of these systems, the EHR. And we say that highlighting the advantages of the EHR system and explaining its core benefits at the early stages of the implementation can increase the perceived value and benefits, subsequently reducing the resistance. Yeah, we also found something about switching costs, what the authors found, and they say that this have a direct effect on resistance towards the adoption of the EHR system. And next, there we also found the impact of support and training. The type of delivery of this support and training from the hospital, it has a positive effect. We could explain that deeper, but we briefed it up here. So then we go straight to the conclusions. That what conclusions did they come to as the author? Number 1, reducing switching costs is crucial. The efforts to minimize switching costs are essential in mitigating resistance to the adoption of the EHR system. Then we also came to, give me a second, kindly give me a second. What are the possible areas of research to build on their research? We picked up this. The future works could examine how the perceived costs and benefits vary across different demographic groups, and that future research should also investigate the impact of self-efficacy of using the EHR technology on resistance. Give me a second. We also picked up that provision of a comparative analysis between the different types of support given by healthcare organizations and how the healthcare providers will respond to each. We needed to give a comparison. We also picked up a possible area of exploring the influence of policy regulations and government initiatives on the EHR adoption and resistance. So that concludes Article 1 in terms of what we found. And now we'll go straight into Article 2, which stated towards a more, this was its title, it says towards a more secure human resource information system, the role of human-computer interaction and unconscious behavior. So the first question says, what is the research problem identified by the author, and what does the previous research say about this problem, and what research has been done in the research area? It says the research problem, what we found was the human resource information system and how unconscious behaviors play a significant role in jeopardizing its security. Then what does our previous research say about this problem? And this is what we got, that several studies have focused on how to educate employees and to develop more effective, secure, acceptable use policies, but also to consider other factors such as the interface designs and unconscious employee behaviors as well. We also noticed something about the human-computer interactions, which examine the design and usability of components, technology as intended, rather than the use/impact cycle. Then more to what the previous research says about this problem is that there was a little bit of limited research that specifically investigated the human resource information system security. But there was a notable study by Zephyr Clark, which examined the difference in perception between the management and staff regarding the human resource security risk management in two companies that they were trying to make their research on. So we could go straight down because we found quite a lot of them, a lot of areas. But I could bring this last one that says the behavior root of security. Traditional security research, especially in organizational settings, it focused on understanding the behavior aspects, the behavior aspects of individuals. And this encompassed physiological and sociological factors that were influencing the security policies. So when you go to question number 2, it says, what research approach and subsequent research method was used by the author in resolving the research problem or the question? We go straight to the research approach. The research approach we found was deductive, and in it we found a lot of quantitative because it was a numbers thing. We found it deductive. And the authors employed give me a second. No, the authors employed this. Sorry, kindly disregard the slides. It's a mistaken slide somewhere. We'll go straight into what were the findings of the authors and what conclusions did they come to, and what were the possible areas of research that you could do to build on their research. The findings, one of the findings of the author was the need of incorporating stronger cues in the human resource information system to counteract risky behaviors. We also found that unconscious habits form the center of human behaviors, yet research largely underestimates and misunderstands them, these unconscious habits. And that many breaches occurs when users are not even consciously aware of what they are doing. Then the conclusions that they came to, these are the conclusions we found. Their conclusions suggest that improving the HRIS security can be achieved by designing systems and practices that take into account the automatic, habitual, and the habitual behaviors of individuals. And that the conclusions they did here was that they suggested that improving this can be achieved by designing these by designing these systems and the practices. So when we go straight into the slide that has the question, what are the possible areas of research to build on their research? What were these possible areas? We picked up this one of them was investigating the role of unconscious habits. The role that these unconscious habits may play in the security of the HRIS. We also picked up a need for longitudinal studies on habit formation, and also to investigate the effectiveness of specific design interventions aimed at influencing unconscious behavior in the HRIS security. Okay, and that concludes our presentation. Thank you for listening. And I hope I wasn't on mute. No, I wasn't. Thank you, Doctor. That was our submission.
Thank you very much. A few comments I would like to give, but I think I will have a holistic feedback for everyone. Thank you very much. Can we have the next group? We have another group. This should have been the 6th group, I think, that has presented. So so far, I think I have 7 groups on the list that I was given.
Yes, we have another group. You can stop sharing so that we can share.
Please stop sharing.
Morning, everyone. This is group A, and I'm starting. Namek, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Let's go to the slide, please. Yes, the first question was, what is the research problem identified by the authors? This is regarding to the research publication on the role of HCI and unconscious behavior. Our research problem identified by the authors is the role of unconscious habits in HRIs, Human Resource Information System security. They aim to understand how employees' habitual behaviors may impact HRIS security and how this can be addressed through system design and training. Question B. The second question was, what does previous research say about this problem? In our research, we found that in the reference to the publication, previous research suggests that security breaches often result from unintentional mistakes caused by habitual behavior rather than malicious acts. However, this issue has not been extensively studied in the context of HRIS and human-computer interaction. Also, the author mentioned previous research in the area of traditional organization IS security, HRI security, habit-based research, and human-computer interaction, literature regarding design-related behaviors and conscious and unconscious behavior. Go to the next. What research has been done on the research area? In our findings, we found that the the authors use a research approach that involves proposing a behavior model and a series of propositions to guide future research in the area of HRIS, security, and unconscious behavior. They also incorporate insights from various fields such as neuroscience, cognitive psychology, and behavior economics. Next, please. The next question is, what research approach and subsequent research method was used by the author in resolving the research problem or question? In our findings, the findings of the authors suggested that unconscious habits play a significant role in HRIS security, and that these habits are often immune to conscious efforts to change behavior. They propose a model that emphasizes the importance of designing systems that target the unconscious part of the behavior spectrum and create strong context and cues to interrupt existing habits. Next slide, please. And then what are the possible areas of research that you could do to build on their research? The possible areas of research that could build on this work include conducting empirical studies to validate the proposed model. Another possible area that they could develop could be developing practical interventions to change unconscious habits related to HRIS security. And also another possible area of research could be exploring the application of neuroscience-based tools in the field of HRIS security. Additionally, research could investigate the effectiveness of different training methods and system design features in modifying unconscious behavior. Lami, could you take over, please?
Thank you, Evelyn. The second part of the question was switching to electronic health record systems, a replication of the user-resistant model. Now, when you look through this article, it's related to what I do. I'm just giving a preamble of what happened in this article. Like, we work in a medical setting. Now, the doctors, nurses, the pediatricians, and other people, they don't want this. They have issues with systems. They want to use manual. They prefer files. Yet we have a new system. Now, in the article that we read, they were bringing in a new system, which is an electronic-based system, which is the electronic health record system, the EHR. Now, the writer, there were two writers of this article. They were trying in this article, they were trying to show us that there was resistance towards this system, and there was a problem. As you can see, our first question, they said that what is the research problem identified? So the research problem identified was that these healthcare providers were resistant to switching from paper-based recording system to an electronic system. Like I introduced, I work in a health setting whereby the doctors they want paper, yet everything must be done in a system. So others know the system, but they don't want to use it. They want to write on a prescription, they want to write paper. So in these articles, the problem was, what the authors identified was that there was resistance, heavy resistance by these medical doctors, nurses, pediatricians, anybody in health. They didn't want to use the electronic system, but they wanted to use the paper-based. So they aim to understand the factor that shaped resistance and as early stage of the electronic health record system. And this is, we got it from I had to access from page 1 of 18 of this article. So that was a reference. So what does the previous say about this? So now when you read through the article, we realize that even as the authors were writing this article, they made references to certain sections. When you see that previous suggest that despite the potential benefits of the EHR system, such as increased patient safety and efficiency, like if you use the system, you just type in medicine and the patient goes to the pharmacy and it's done instead of writing. Most of you probably have gone to medical sites and doctors write things on them and you can't even read it. So, but in a system, someone can able to read what they have been, can be printed out in very good handwriting and which is seen. So according to the article, there were some references to where the writers were actually showing the resistance. So we wrote here the resistance to EHR system has been attributed to factors such as healthcare providers' reluctance to change. Like they are stuck. I want to write these things. This is how it is done. I don't want those things. That's not my work. According to the article, someone said that these are not. This is not my role. This is a data person's role. This is an IT work. I'm not supposed to start typing. I'm supposed to just write it. So the perception of the system was an hindrance, and they believe that ER systems involve clerical tasks that undermine their professional status. Meaning, for them, they saw that if they sit down and they type up everything for a patient who came to a hospital, it would mean that they are not doctors anymore. They are now clerical people. They are now data people. They are now data people. So there was a lot of resistance over that. So that was the authors had references to. When you read to the introduction, they made references, and this is what I managed to extract from the article. They said, furthermore, healthcare providers perceive the interaction of HIT as an activity that is not part of their job description. This is, I'm quoting from the real text of that article. And thus, they are not willing to stretch their capacities to perform the non-medical tasks. We had authors like Bochanda, Shanks, 2016. Many consider the use of HIT as an inappropriate for the physicians because it requires clerical tasks. You can actually see that, like, really, like, I don't know what the doctor loses when he types in medicine for someone rather than writing down something which is not clear. Most of us have gone to hospitals and the doctor can even write Sept, and you can wonder whether it is what is it. So it was undermining their professional status as they claimed. Laporte and Revard in 2005, those were the references. So the reference was an introduction on page 2 of 18. The other question was, what research has been done on this research area? So according to the article, again, they say that prior research in this area has focused on understanding the adoption of the ER system, but has often neglected the post-implementation stage of the resistance. That is the other post-implementation stage whereby they have rolled out the system, but now there's that going back to the system and see how does it work, what does it do, and how is it efficient? Are people using it? I'm going to give you an example. In the health setting where I work, we have now what we call the electronic medical records, which is actually almost the same as this one. And I can tell you, we've had a lot of things. Doctors are used to abbreviations. Yes, the system demands real, like if you say it is Septrin, you have to write Septrin. If you say it is this, you don't have to abbreviate like normally. For example, if you went to the hospital, when they are telling you the return date, they normally put TCA, which some people don't understand, but TCA means someone is supposed to come back to the clinic on the particular date. So to the authors, they note a lack of empirical tested models that explain healthcare providers' resistance to EHR system, especially in the context of developing countries like probably Uganda. So what research and subsequent research method were used by the authors in resolving the research problem? Now, this is where I believe Madam Shiba will actually try and explain to the class more, because I think we had a lot of discussions on this thing, because the research approach, then the research method, but I managed to look at the notes she gave us, the onion part of it. Those who actually heard the notes about the onion, how she was bringing it out, you could actually tell that there's a pattern of the way methods which are used when someone's carrying out research. And one of the things I picked up is what we call quantitative research. Remember, research has two phases. There's quantitative, there's qualitative, and then there's a mixed one. If you those who remember our last lessons. So in the quantitative research, when you look at the quantitative, we had the surveys and questionnaires. Now, when you look at the article, the researcher referred to employees who completed the first survey, as seen in 4.2. That is, if you read the article, the main study section, it is referred to. So I thought, and on the part of the quantitative, the researcher used the surveys, and that's the part used. Then now, under qualitative research method, we also had the statistical analysis. Now, statistical analysis method involves the use of statistical techniques to analyze quantitative data. This includes descriptive statistics as shown in the table below, which was extracted from the article that is study 4.2 table 1. And this is the table. So you can see the researcher had used descriptive statistics for respondents. That is the demographic variables and the data, meaning gender, the male and female. The male were 133 and the female were 93. Then the age bracket, then they had also to say age bracket that is less than 30, 30 and 40, 40. That is descriptive statistics. I thought that was a method. Probably the lecturer will explain more on that. So what were some of the findings which came out? The perceived value of HR system does not mediate the relationship between the switching cost and resistance. Remember, they had the paper-based, now they had to switch to that side. So healthcare provider perceive switching costs as a significant contributor to resistance. And then the other part is organization support for change has a positive effect on switching costs, contrary to the expected negative effect. There was also social influence, organization support, and self-efficacy for change do not have direct effects on resistance, unlike the original URM. So I had to get up this quote from the article, where they said that a few studies that have tried to capture behavior such as resistance to HR system are mostly either conceptual, that is Bostra and Boston 2010, Nofrad and etc. So these were some of the references they had to. So as a result, there is an evident lack of empirical tested models that explain healthcare providers using to HR system. I guess some of us have actually said that we can actually expand more on this. So the other question was, what were the possible areas of research that you could actually build on this research as a student, as an institution, as a person who read the article, as a group? We managed to pick up this. And so the possible areas that could build on this study, one was investigating the role of loss of aversion in healthcare providers' perception of the ER system. We have to probably investigate a lot more, probably because when you read the article, the author had to even to do a cohort study, a sub study within that. He had to divide two people to get different, two sections of people. Then there was another examining the impact of different types of organization support on switching costs. So that could be a very good part of it to look at that, where you can do the research on that. Then the other one is also exploring the role of individual differences, such as potential personality traits in each other. Some people, like for example, where I work in the hospital, the old people, they said with give me a paper, I write down. So they prefer to write everything in a file. And then it is the data people, data clerks, filing part who actually had to transcribe what they wrote in the. So it's also that part where someone has to conduct research on that. Then also conducting cross-cultural studies to assess whether the findings are applicable in different health contexts. For example, Mulago and Bela may be very high-tech hospitals, but if you go to Health Center 3 in Ntungamo, in Tororo, you will not bring these systems there. So you could also do further research on that. So further research should also be done on examining resistance toward HR as a post-implementation status. That is, after you've implemented, then do another study. Is it working? Is it serving the purpose? Is it doing what it's supposed to do? So further study should be on examining the effect of organization support to the adoption of the EHR. So another quote here, in prior to research examine parts of the URM in the educator context, but with no aim to fully replicate the theory in this new context. That is the other part, that is HERSI 2015. So additional studies are aimed at capturing resistance at post-implementation stage. Why post-implementation stage? Remember, sometimes when we go to trainings, they give us the pre-test and the post-test. So the first test, they test you what knowledge do you have. Then the post-test is after teaching you, then they give you the test and see the knowledge that they have taught you. Have you learned something from it? So that is also probably needed in this setting. So what conclusion did we come up with? So the authors concluded that their study provides insights into the factors that influence healthcare providers' resistance to EHR systems. One, they suggest that reducing switching costs, because there were a lot of costs involved in that thing, for those who read the article, enhancing the positive opinions about the change, providing appropriate support that can help reduce resistance. However, also they also highlighted the need for further research to understand the role of individual differences in HR resistance. Thank you so much. But me, I would like to have a question with the lecturer, whereby we needed more guidance on the methods, because there are two articles. We had two articles, and one article had a different method, and then another article had a different method. So thank you so much for listening to me. Over to you, madam.
Okay, thank you. Now I think Lamek give a good question, and one of the things that I would like to give elaboration on, I intend to do like a pre-recorded video and then send it to give a holistic guidance on all. Specifically, if I go to your last article you've just given, and you give a good reference, when you look at the research onion, it gives the different types, it talks about the different sections of the onion and the types that lie in. So you have your research approach, which could be deductive or inductive, or rather qualitative or quantitative. Then you have your research methods. Now, because we haven't covered research methods, it may be a bit confusing what research methods we may be talking about. Specifically for your, this last article you looked at, that research method, we have the research method, they used questionnaires. Now, the questionnaire is not a method, it's a data collection tool or data collection method. So the research method is a survey. That's what they did. They used a survey. So the survey is the research method. The questionnaire is the data collection tool or method.
Oh.
Yes.
Because I was looking at this onion part, and I was trying to figure, I've shared it on the paper. So there's the sampling, there's the secondary data, there's the observation, the interview, and the questionnaires. So the first question, if you looked at the first article, what the authors were using were actually totally different model. It's only the second article where actually a surveyor was used, whereby someone was given a surveyor to fill in. So I kind of, it was a bit confusing.
Okay.
But I think you've brought it out.
Okay. Okay.
On that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Is there any other group to present?
Doctor, before maybe another group comes in to present,
yes,
back to the research onion. I wanted to. I also got confused. We also got confused actually as a group about the actual methods, because if you look at the onion, the yellow one, it actually mentions the research methods as strategies, something like that.
Yes.
They pointed them as strategies and confused the.
Okay, normally those two are interchanged, a research method and research strategy. It's just a name interchange, but it's one and the same.
All right, okay, that's noted. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So do we have any other group that is to present? Do we have any other group to present? Is there anyone else? If no, now just overall guide or overall observations. First of all, it was good work, definitely good work. Areas which I intend to focus on is what are results? What is the research problem, and what is specifically, what are the research problems in these articles? And also, another key point to note is I passed on to, I was supposed to have these videos up by yesterday, but I did them before yesterday, sent them to ICT, but they were not put up in time. So in those two videos, I talk about a research question in a qualitative perspective and on a quantitative perspective, or rather more hypothesis. So this may be able to tie in back to those two videos. So, but specifically for this assignment, I'm going to focus my attention on what were the research problems, what is a research method, and results finding. So I'll focus on those three areas. And I think also another thing to point out is there's what we call a theoretical approach or theoretical framework that an article may have used or researchers may have used. That's not necessarily a research method. It is a theoretical framework guides the researcher on development of hypothesis, and two, it also, if it's on the qualitative side, it's what is used to guide the researcher on what to look for, that they don't go outside of their scope. As much as qualitative research is flexible, the theoretical framework guides the researcher on how do I get in there to look for something. So those are things I will clarify in that video for the sake of time. Do we have
Madam,
any? Yes, Lamek, you have a
I may
question?
ask,
Yes,
will I
please.
be wrong if I say a research approach is the procedure selected by a researcher to collect, analyze, and interpret data?
It's sort of like that. It would be like that. Remember that the research approach is you deciding as a researcher, should my research be qualitative or quantitative or mixed methods?
Or mixed, yes.
It's you making a decision, depending on my research problem. How am I going to approach this research problem? Am I going to approach it in a sense that I'm exploring because there is no information, or am I going, or is the problem assuming, making an assumption that we want to find out if there's a causal relationship between two or more variables? Is it descriptive in nature? So it is how am I going to approach this research problem, in other words? So how am I going to approach it? And with that approach, you then are led to other things like, what method then should I use? If I've chosen the method, what tools should I select? Yes.
Okay.
Do we have any other question? Question, comment? Okay, if no, let me just make some also other discussions or guidance on how we're going to move forward. Now, originally, when I spoke to head of department, he had told me I was teaching for 6 weeks. Then he called me back and said, no, I'm actually teaching for 5 weeks. So next week is actually my last week for teaching. Now, I thought quickly, what do I do? We already have some pre-recorded videos for qualitative research questions and then hypothesis. And then we shall have a forum discussion. So I spoke to ICT. He said he's going to upload those for me as quickly as possible, I hope today. And then I upload them. Then two, I have also 3 videos which I did last year on research design. So I'll also upload those, so that will help us to cover up for topics that we may not have time to teach. So that I know that next week I'll be focusing on research methods or strategies, research methods slash strategies, and then I will be going, then I'll finalize that with data analysis. So that should help us cover for those. Then I wanted to give you in between this a group assignment again on concept paper development. So I want you to do it in a group, because you'll do that as your final assignment, a final assessment or exam. All those are take home. So the group assignment, the second assignment, should be you should be able to do it and then submit it without presentation. And then I'll mark, so that I'll give a guidance on how it should look like, the concept paper. So a concept paper isn't really much, between 4 to 5 pages maximum. Basically, you develop a concept paper on a research problem. What I would advise is to make things quicker, focus on the proposed research areas that the papers you've been given provide. Use those as a starting point to save you time. If you don't wish, you can use another area, but you can use those papers because they already give you possible areas of research, and you do this in groups. Yes, Jimmy, you have a question.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yes, please.
Actually, according to the timetable, we're expected to be having exams on 7th of October. Can you
Yes.
please guide on that?
So your exam will be a take home.
Okay.
Yeah, so the take home will give you maybe about 2 weeks to do it, two to 3 weeks, and then submit. So the date itself does not have to disturb you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
You're most welcome. Yes, Marcelino?
Quick clarification.
Sorry? Sorry, you're not clear.
Oh, sorry, let me just switch this. So, can you hear me now?
A little bit better.
Okay. That is a small clarification. You said you as good work for a concept note, a concept paper.
Sorry, you're still not very clear. I don't know if it's your microphone or.
Just a bit. I think it's my microphone.
Okay, now it's better.
Okay, now you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Just clarification. You have said you're going to give us group work as a concept paper.
Yes, please.
And you also got to give us a separate exam, which will also be a take home.
Yes.
So the concept paper, we can get it from these previous articles that we have just done.
Yes.
And how about the final? Will it also be based on these articles, or it will be individual research?
Individual research.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're most welcome. Do we have any other question? Let me check in the chat room. Let me see. Let me see if there's a question. I'm not seeing a question here.
Excuse me, Doctor.
Yes, please.
I have a question, but it's not related to this class. It's more about the 2022 intake.
Yes.
We are told that we are presenting our research topics tomorrow. Will you be part of the panel?
Tomorrow? Tomorrow what time?
At 9? We were told at 9 a.m.
9 a.m. Who? 9 a.m. 9 a.m. That's too early. I've been mass.
Well, that is what we were informed. I just wanted clarification on that.
I don't think that 9 a.m. is because that time is mass time, and I'm in the village, so you don't have exactly luxury of the time of going for
Madam, I think
you have multiple
you can
mass.
check with Goretti. Goretti said he's going to give new information today at around 2 p.m.
Who?
Regarding that. Goretti.
Goretti.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can
I'll
check
find
with
out.
her, so she will give no information regarding that.
Okay. Okay. I'll find out about that. Because I remember
Okay.
when the time same thing happened. They put these things very early on Sunday, and unfortunately for me, this side in the village, you find your parish has only one mass slot, so you can't afford to miss. So
It's okay.
okay.
All right. Thank you.
You're most welcome. So there's somebody in the chat room asking that are you going to start your research projects immediately after this module? The answer is yes and no. Essentially, there'll be a point where you'll be asked for your proposals. What I would say is start working on it now. Since you've been given the tool, start working on it now. Doesn't mean that you'll be asked to present, but for me, I'm asking for the concept paper for the sake of marking this module, not that it's going to be your final research project. I hope I answered that question. Do we have any other question or comment?
Maybe my comment, Dr. Nicholas
Yes.
here, that we shall be looking forward to getting your input to our today's presentation. I've realized we have had multiple approaches in the presentation to
Yes.
maybe better moving forward. I'll be looking forward.
Yes. What I'll do is consolidate all 4 articles so that I give the perspective for all 4 articles. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you so much.
Do we have any other question or comment?
Yes, Doctor, a comment.
Yes, please.
I wanted some clarity concerning how best to present next time, in case it's possible, how best to present an assignment. Because our group, it looked like we over summarized our assignment.
Okay. One, when you when you're presenting, especially PowerPoint, it is good to be as brief as possible. Most of the information should come from the presenter. The slides should be guided, should be simply guiding. So they should be brief as possible. Reason why? Because when you have too many words, your audience focuses on reading than on listening. So those are just some rules about PowerPoint presentation. So, but however, this course unit is not marking on presentation, but it's marking on research. But the general rule is when you're presenting on PowerPoint, be as brief as possible with the wording on the PowerPoint, and the presenter should focus on explanation, so that the audience should be focused on you, the presenter, not the presentation. I hope I answer your question.
Yes, thank you. How about for this particular assignment?
For this particular assignment, really, for me, I would prefer to listen rather than read. That is me.
Thank you.
Yeah, but again, I would not mark you based on that, because you're not here to be experts on the lecturing part. But for me, I prefer more to listen than read.
Thank you, Doctor.
Do we have any other question or comment?
Doctor,
Yes, please.
you have said that the next group work it's just for handing in, correct?
Yes. So it will be a concept paper written by the group.
So we do not have any upcoming presentations.
No.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question or comment?
We are meeting again on Friday, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I think with that, if there's nothing else, let me let you go for the weekend. I want to focus on getting all the other content and putting it up, preferably by end of today. And then I'll let Amina know, and she'll pass this information to you immediately.
Okay.
Second thing, there's somebody in the group called Nsubuga Hood. I think he's in the groups, he's assigned to 2 different groups. So if I can have clarity on that. And then, of course, some of you are not on Moodle, but I hope your presentations indicate group members, so that when I mark, I allocate marks accordingly. So just take note of that. So